Ruth Porat kept calling it noisy.
It was noisy. There was a $550 million penalty to French tax authorities. There was a mark-to-market on all the public and private investments Google has in companies like Uber and Lyft. You stripped all of that out. This was an in-line to better revenue quarter and an actually very good earnings quarter, with the company buying back $6 billion worth of stock in the quarter, which was a big surprise to the upside.
You're bullish on the stock.
I am.
So you don't look at this as a miss at all?
There was no miss on sites revenue. That's YouTube and search. And on cloud, they beat on revenue and spoke very positively about cloud trends on the call last night.
Do you think investors are really going to XXXXX and then say, oh, I like it?
It seems like it. I mean, first thing to keep in mind, I mean, Alphabet shares were pretty close to their high as opposed to the other FANG stocks, which have been some margin below their high. So I do think people are looking for a good number. It's a similar story, right? The core businesses look great. Growing at 20% at this scale is kind of amazing. And I think there's a little bit of ambivalence all the time with investors saying, gee, wish they would harvest a little bit more, or just have a little more kind of ROI attitude about what they're investing in at this point. But on the other hand, you know, again, the core business is great and you have exposure to these massively growing areas, whether it's, you know, internet TV through YouTube or cloud.
Okay, give me the upside and downside for the stock.
I think the upside is closer to something like $1,100-1,600 per share.
Okay, what has to, in the next 12 months?
Over the next 12 to 18 months, that's our upside scenario. Our price target actually moved to $1,460 overnight. Against the free cash flow this throws off, I think your downside is around $1,000, $1,100. You know, we saw that level earlier this year when revenue surprisingly decelerated in Q1. That was the big miss that caused a big sell-off in the stock earlier this year. You've now seen 2 quarters of accelerating revenue off that miss in Q1. I think that's what people liked last night.
Okay. Eric and Mike, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All right, coming up, it is a big week, another one for earnings. The Fed, Boeing, and much more. We're going to have you covered on all the big stories. And after the S&P yesterday closed at a record high, can the momentum keep up today? Not so far, but the Dow's paring its losses after Merck and Pfizer had good numbers. We'll be right back.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
It's another Tuesday morning, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Experience Mexican culture and relax by the Caribbean Sea. Fly from London Gatwick to Cancun with British Airways from £275 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
In cinemas November 15.
So you're going to build a car to beat Ferrari?
With a Ford.
Correct.
Get ready for Le Mans 66.
They hate guys like us because we're different.
Starring Matt Damon and Christian Bale.
What are they doing? Making your car go faster. That's more like it!
Based on the incredible true story.
You got a plan? It's high risk.
Of Ford versus Ferrari.
No, I thought the whole point was to win the damned race.
Le Mans 66.
Hit it.
In cinemas and IMAX November 15.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and be unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Earnings and the Fed. What investors need to be watching ahead of the open straight ahead.
Utility stocks under pressure as wildfires rage across California. A closer look at the impact on the sector and to customers coming up.
And Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg heads to Washington to face questions about the company's 737 MAX airliner. We'll speak to Senator Roger Wicker ahead of the hearing as the second hour of Squawk Box begins right now.
Live from the beating heart of business, New York, this is Squawk Box.
Good morning and welcome back to Squawk Box here on CNBC, live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Joe Kernan, along with Becky Quick and Andrew Ross Sorkin. U.S. equities futures indicated down 22 at this moment. NASDAQ indicated down 16.5. And the S&P is off 3 from all-time highs.
In our headlines right now, 2 major pharmaceutical companies reporting better than expected earnings this morning. First up, Merck reporting profit of $1.51 a share. That was about 27 cents better than the street was expecting. The company also narrowed and raised its full-year earnings forecast as a result of that beat. And you can see that Dow component is now up by 1.7%. Rival drug company and fellow Dow component Pfizer also beating Wall Street's forecast. Pfizer earned 75 cents a share for the third quarter. That was 13 cents better than expected. Pfizer also said that 2019 research and development expenses will be less than it had originally forecast. The stock right now up by about 3.25%. And Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg is going to be testifying before a Senate panel today on the 2 737 MAX jet crashes that killed 346 people. He will tell lawmakers that the jet maker made mistakes and that it will take steps to ensure that accidents like this never happen again. You can expect a lot of focus on this, a lot of focus both in Washington and on Wall Street. We have more on this story coming up a little later this hour.
And today is the day 1 of the Fed meeting kicking off right now. And Steve Leisman joins us with the results of the latest CNBC Fed survey. Steve.
Yeah, and Andrew, what we find is that there's pretty good certainty about what's going to happen today and tomorrow. But after that is where opinions really diverge about the outlook for monetary policy. Take a look at our Fed expectations chart. This is the results of our survey of 43 strategists, economists, and fund managers. 79% expect a cut to be announced tomorrow. It's pretty good agreement. We've actually been at 100 a lot of times, but not this one, 79%. The next cut, though, the average date, February 2020, and only 37% expect a December cut, which means that more than 50% are building in a pause for the next meeting. And then the median funds rate going through 2020, the median is 1.4%. That means that they're expecting one more cut and a little bit over the course of the next, say, 13 or 14 months. Let's move on and let's get the divisions over what they think the Fed really should do. And 44% think the Fed should hold. Add the two together, and you get 54% think the Fed should cut. So there's a good amount of kind of disagreement over what ought to happen here. Okay, now let's look further down the road here. 40% think the Fed won't cut again after this rate cut in October. 60% say they will. And then we divided that again. 30% see one more cut, and 30% see more than once, or the Fed cutting more than once. And then one other thing is, why is the Fed cutting? Well, 31% say it's a weak. These all add up to 100. They're supposed to anyway. Weak economy, low inflation, and the trade war are the 3 big reasons. The yield curve, market pressure. And this group does not believe that the Fed and Powell are responding to presidential pressure. Just 3% say that's the reason for the cut. And we have all this, guys, online, all the results, including grading the current Democratic and Republican candidates for president.
Do you want to give us a little hint?
A pox
on that front?
Generally a pox on everyone's house, but much more of a pox on the Democratic House. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 5 is neutral, 10 is very positive. President Trump gets a 5.5.
Okay.
The next closest Democrat, 4.7, Joe Biden.
Okay. Then?
Well, I don't have them all in front of me, but I do know that Sanders is a 2.
Okay.
And Warren's a 2.5.
2.5.
Which is believed to be very negative.
Okay.
Did you? I guess Harwood sat down with Bernie. Did you see that?
It did. Yeah. I didn't.
Bernie,
run yet?
Anybody who has been successful and generated any prosperity whatsoever is an enemy. Is one of Bernie's enemies, and he's very proud of that. I mean, it was to me, it was surreal just watching it. It was like, wow, you're like I I don't know. That's the kind of guy that honeymoons in Moscow. I mean, no offense. No, you went over there in business, right? You went over there.
Became a capitalist, as I often say, because
you did. He didn't. He didn't.
But here's the thing: it's amazing that, in my opinion, the Democratic Party completely cedes the issue of economic growth to the Republicans. They don't even use the phrase economic growth. They don't generally use the phrase private sector.
No, it's become a complete anti-private sector.
And I don't get that, because it's not like there are a bunch of programs that, in my opinion, Joe, that are socialism that would be really good for capitalism.
Where's Mayor Pete on all this?
I think he's thought to be more centrist, but
no, I know. Although he's not that centrist.
I have a rule: the number of candidates has to be under double digits for me to really dive into their economic proposals.
Well,
how can you do 20?
You're gonna have to wait a while.
You just can't do it.
You're gonna have to wait.
But by the way, next one we have Robert Frank, who looks at I should tell you, 80% hate the wealth tax. Right. For a whole bunch of reasons.
One of Robert's houses just got sold. Did you see out in L.A.? One of the ones that he's talked about before.
Is he got a commission on that?
The house that he's
no, it wasn't one of his. It was a $250 million. Did you see? It was a $250 million house sold for $90. Yep. I mean, like a steal.
Well, that's
like the 250
the numbers are
was
made
real,
up just like IPO numbers are made up. Right.
Exactly. Steve, thank you. I want to talk to you a little more about the Democratic Party in a second. But for a closer look at the economy, the Fed, and more, I want to welcome in Kathy Jones, Chief Fixed Income Strategist at Schwab Center for Financial Research. Chris Campbell's also here, served as Assistant Treasury Secretary during the Trump administration. He's now a Chief Strategist with Duff and Phelps Institute. Let's start here in terms of what we think the Fed is going to do, not what they should do, and what you think the market already expects.
Yeah, I think the market's in line with the consensus that they'll cut this week and they'll try to go on pause.
And they'll try to go on pause. So hold on. If they say they're going to go on pause, you think the market's going to be okay with that? Because I'm not in the same camp with you.
No, I'm not saying the market's going to like it, but I think that the consensus amongst economists and strategists is that. I'm not sure that the market is in position for that. So when
you think the market is not positioned for them to say they're going on hold?
Right, because I think the market's expecting them to be ambiguous about their future plans, which I think Powell will try to be. Right. But anything that doesn't indicate another cut coming right away will probably be a disappointment to the market.
Chris, where do you stand?
So we think our clients largely expect that the Fed will cut rates at least once between now and the end of the year. They don't like to intervene in election years. Election years tend to be
once between now and the end of the year. So, but this week.
Oh yeah, this week, okay. And I think maybe one more. And because again, the Fed just doesn't typically intervene in election years, and so if election years tend to be very volatile, this one probably be a little more volatile than most. And so I think they want to do what they can now between the end of the year to make sure that we're in a good steady position, that'll get us through the end of the next year.
I just want to point out our survey is not that much different from where the market is priced, which is for a 90% chance of a rate cut tomorrow and an 18% chance of a rate cut in December. Now, what the Fed funds futures say and what happens once the market hears that confirmed,
that's what I'm talking about.
There can be a huge gulf.
Yeah. Yes.
It can be like we're priced for a pause, and then Powell says pause, and the market freaks out because you don't know where the marginal money is.
What I mean for the market not being priced correctly is when I look at the Treasury yield curve, the 5-year is expensive if the Fed is not cutting more. So you don't have the slope of the curve pricing in the Fed going on pause.
Okay, philosophical question. Did you guys read this today? Fed rate cuts don't pack punch they once did. This is the Heard on the Street column. Not exactly the newest idea in the world, but the question is, at this point in the ball game and at this point in the cycle, is this actually a wasted effort?
I'll just say very quickly before our guests answer that our survey is full of people who do not believe in the efficacy of these rate cuts. I want to quote one individual here who says, after the next cut, the Fed funds rate would re-enter the zone where there's no evidence that further cuts help the economy. If ultra-low rates and negative rates are such a panacea, why aren't Japan and Germany growing at 6%?
Anybody want to take that on?
Yeah,
you got guys like Paulson that say it's just takes a while over in Europe, and we're starting to see the benefits
Jim Paulson.
of what Jim Paulson says. There's a lag effect, and it still does work in his view. And I don't know, the S&P kind of said that.
Well, we're seeing a little bit of benefit in the housing market from the rate cuts, but no one is saying that the cost of capital is too high or that credit is not available.
But they're saying the dollar's too high.
But cutting rates isn't going to help any because the dollar has stayed firm, even though the Fed has been cutting rates because policy is ultra easy elsewhere.
On the headline, I think I look at it conversely. I think that if the Fed does not cut rates, I think the market would react probably negatively. So I think that there's...
if the Fed does not cut, the market will have a complete prediction.
And by the way, can I just say, if they don't cut this time, thinking they're going to cut next time, it's a wasted...
You guys are absolutely right.
You look like you get pressured into cutting later because you didn't cut this time and the market threw it.
And I can tell you the way the Fed looks at that, which is that what the Fed wants to do by cutting rates is to ease financial conditions. Right. When it upsets the market and the market sells off, that tightens financial conditions.
If you're going to cut once out of the next two meetings, I would say cut now and warn everybody you're not cutting again later so that it gives the market time to react.
Well, what do you want them to do, Becky?
I don't know. Rates are so low at these levels.
Steve, we spent years keeping trying to keep asset values high based on low interest rates of trying to engender the wealth effect, and it worked. Some people would say so. I mean, there's something to it, self-fulfilling.
Let me lay out how push and pull kind of
I don't think
meet
they need
here.
to do it, but I don't think they've sufficiently warned the market that they're not going to do it.
Okay, so what happens is the Fed feels like it's given a lot of stimulus. It cut back on interest rate hikes it was going to do. It stopped reducing the balance sheet and actually started increasing it a bit now. And third, it's cutting rates. And then on the other hand, you have the phenomenon that Joe talked about, which there's two phenomena. One is the impact of that coming over time. The other, though, is the lagged effect of whatever's going on with the trade war.
Right.
So Powell's got a dance to do, and I don't really envy the position that he's in right now. I think the phrase that you're going to be listening for is meeting by meeting. And I think that's the way he's going to signal. Not going to dash hopes, but he's not going to try to fuel them either.
Right. You were one of the first reporters in the past couple of weeks to come out and say that maybe they'd pause. Right. And then there was sort of a flurry of other reports that sort of tried to suggest that. The question is, do those reports, if you will, give the Fed any cover to do that now, or did to the extent that some people are thinking about a potential pause, the market either didn't buy it or didn't want to buy it?
So I think the market did begin, except for what was talked about earlier by Kathy about the 5-year and the curve. The market did buy it. The market has come off dramatically the expectation for a December rate cut. But I just would caution, you were shaking your head when I said this, which is the futures market can price something, but then it comes out of Powell's mouth, and the Fed can go into something believing the market expects it and be very surprised that the market did not expect it.
Chris and Kathy, thank you. Mr. Leisman, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, coming up, quarterly results from AutoNation. The company's CEO will join us for our first on CNBC interview. And then later, a look at how the fires in California are impacting families and the utility companies out there. Stay tuned. You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC.
Fed Survey is sponsored by ServiceNow.
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. We dropped off our Christmas shopping at the hotel. Then it was off to be spellbound at the Theatre Royal Bath. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Why is Lizzie going rental for Fizzy Haze? Is it because her flat is so beautiful and spacious? Snazzy! Or has roof terrace, garden and party room? Surprising! Or because it's 18 minutes to Paddington? Easy! With friendly staff on hand to take any deliveries? Amazing! Or just because her fuzzy friend can live there too? Find your new home at fizzyhaze.com. Fizzy Living. Reinventing renting.
They don't chant your name when you give blood or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
There's something for everybody this Halloween at Aldi. Dead good sweets, decorations, face paints. Be afraid. Be very afraid to miss out on these shockingly low prices. In store now. Everybody get to Aldi for an amazing Halloween.
Halloween's back, all right. Welcome back to Squawk Box. Shares of Beyond Meat getting slammed in the pre-market. Take a look at what's going on here. Despite reporting its first profit as a publicly traded company and raising its revenue outlook for the year, Beyond Meat facing increasing competition from rivals like Impossible Burger, even as it signs new big deals with chains including Subway and McDonald's. Shares have been under pressure in recent weeks since topping out near $240. You can look at CEO Ethan Brown's going to join us to talk more about the quarter. That's going to happen at 8 a.m. Eastern Time.
Coming up next, though, the CEO of AutoNation on the company's latest quarterly results. We're going to be sitting down with her, hearing everything that she thinks about it. Cheryl Miller is standing by and will be on set with us next. And later, Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg heads to the Hill later this morning regarding the state of the embattled 737 MAX fleet. We've got a preview of that hearing straight ahead. Squawk Box returns after a quick break.
This CNBC program.
It's another Tuesday morning. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to see spectacular coral reefs and white sand beaches. Fly from London Gatwick to Mauritius with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £949 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
I tell you what used to be fair, lunch. Used to walk past pubs and just see people laughing and merriment. What happened to those cheery days? I tell you what happened to them. It's been replaced by a pint glass sitting by a computer full of condiments, plastic cutlery, and a pair of chopsticks you use for fishing the noodles out your keyboard. It's just not fair.
At TalkTalk, fairness is important. That's why, unlike some other providers, we offer fixed price plans on our fibre broadband for the entire length of your contract. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Fairer broadband for everyone.
I spy with my little eye something beginning with P.
People.
No, parrot.
I'll have to remember my binoculars next time.
Although you might not be able to see it, your small actions can have a real impact with Shell. Every time you fill up and use Shell Go Plus, you'll be protecting and replanting forests around the world. Make the change. Drive carbon neutral. Shell. Go well. See goplus.shell.com/CO2 for details.
It's hard to find a children's gift which doesn't have a short shelf life. They'll eat all the chocolates in 5 minutes, finish their video games by the end of the week, and grow out of their trainers before you know it. So instead of buying them something just for Christmas, buy them something that's for life. Premium bonds from NS&I. Every month they'll have the chance to win cash prizes. And now you can buy premium bonds for any child. Start their savings journey from just £25. Search Gift Premium Bonds to find out more.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
AutoNation reporting third quarter results, which exceeded Wall Street estimates on both the top and the bottom lines. And joining us now, Cheryl Miller, CEO of AutoNation, and great to have you on set with us today. These are numbers that we always like to look at in terms of how we think of auto sales in the United States as a barometer of economic activity. And we've heard for years now that peak sales had occurred and that we couldn't expect results to continue quite as strong, but these seem strong.
We had a really solid quarter. So EPS of $1.11 a share compared to analyst consensus of $1.05. Revenue was up 3%. Gross profit was up 5%. Customer financial services was up a record 8% on a per vehicle basis. And then we also had really strong customer care results up 6%. On top of that, we had some great tailwinds in interest rates. So instead of having 3 hikes for the year, we had 2 cuts for the year. And that really provided a nice tailwind for us as well.
Right. There was a lot of things in the quarter. We did some work at CNBC, and $1.07 is, if you factor out some one-time items, but solidly above expectations. What I'm interested in are these segment results. So domestic segment up 5%, $70 million. Imports up 2%, 85, but premium luxury up 16%. I'm trying to figure out what that means, $89 million compared to a year ago. What does that mean?
Really strong product launches. So if you think about some of the product refreshes in premium luxury from Mercedes all the way through, some really great product, and it really drove some really strong results for us in the quarter.
Mike, before he left, tried
Still
to...
there?
Before he left as CEO. He's chairman, obviously. But he tried to broaden the product offerings to service and more recurring business. How's that? That's reflected in these
brand
results.
extension is an amazing part of our business. If you think about customer care, up 6%, so really solid results in that. And we're not just relying on new vehicle sales. So if you look at used, really strong used results in the quarter as well.
Pre-owned.
Pre-owned.
Mike always said I think by the end he was saying
nearly new. So we call it
nearly new. Oh
right?
my God!
And so really strong results. And so if I think
McKinsey came up with that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, right.
When I think about the breadth of performance, it's really strong, and also cost control. So if you take out one-timers, you see really good cost discipline in the business. So I feel really good about that. And really, if you think about the consumer is doing well. And we've got this tailwind in rates, and that's really substantial.
So that has helped. The rates coming down.
A big help in affordability. And so we feel really good about where we're positioned.
So it does have an effect. We just were told that lower rates don't have an effect.
It doesn't matter as much.
It does in the car business.
For some other places, but
but it's also the new products.
Right.
There's the advertising campaigns there's a lot of money being spent right now.
Right, in a disciplined way, but yes.
You think in a disciplined way?
I think so.
Cheryl, what about truck sales? I mean, I remember talking to Mike about this for 12 or 13 years before the Great Recession. How are truck sales doing? Because it's a good indicator of how contractors are doing, and that's a good indicator of housing, which is a big part of the economy.
Well, look at the employment numbers, right? Employment's strong, and so we're seeing strength in trucks. We're seeing strength in SUVs. And so we're excited about the lineups that are out there. We're relieved that the GM strike is over. So we're glad that that's been resolved, and we're in really good position with respect to GM inventory.
What did it mean for the strike? Did you get to the point where you were running low on inventories?
We really weren't, and so we were really well positioned. So during the strike period, we had plenty of supply. I would say parts got a little bit tight, but in terms of vehicles, no material impact in the third quarter, and we feel really good about how we'll close out the year with them.
What was your first month, Cheryl, when you took over as CEO? I was just looking at the chart. It looks like so far so good.
It looks like a pretty good run.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel good about that.
You got great employees, obviously. Far be it from you to take credit
amazing
for
associates.
Before taking over CEO, you had already started a strategic initiative with Waymo. Is that
correct?
That's your deal. And is it? Where does that stand? Is it
really excited to announce today that we've actually extended that multi-year contract? So we have a multi-year extension on the service part of the business.
Well, I don't even understand how that works. Yeah.
Waymo vehicles? Is that
we do service Waymo vehicles.
Okay.
So if you,
how many Waymo vehicles are on the road?
There's a decent amount on the road. If you're out in Phoenix, take a look around, and we're servicing those, and not
you say decent. Is that tens of dozens? Is that hundreds?
More than that.
Okay.
Hundreds.
Thousands?
Yeah, there's hundreds on the road out there. And if you look at that, we've been maintaining those vehicles. We just extended that. We have a rider program. So if you're at AutoNation Toyota of Tempe, you have the ability, instead of taking a shuttle, to take a Waymo back to the office.
You take a Waymo with no driver?
Right now, they often have safety drivers, and that's up to Waymo how they run the program today.
Okay.
But we're also really excited today talking about autonomous parts delivery.
That's what I want to understand. Tell me about that. So how does that? So parts delivery in Waymo vehicle
in Phoenix, Arizona. So if you think about that, out at AutoNation Toyota of Tempe, we sell a lot of parts. So we sell great Toyota parts to a lot of other businesses, a lot of independents in the market. And so now instead of putting an employee in our vehicle or in a shuttle vehicle to take it over to deliver a part, we're now going to have the Waymo deliver that for us. So we'll be excited in the coming months to launch that.
With gas prices down here where they are, you're selling gas guzzlers still. I mean,
they're so much more fuel efficient than they used to be.
But what's the total percentage of electric cars at this point?
Really small. So these days it's still
de minimis, almost.
Couple percent max if you include hybrids in there even.
And how about trucks and SUVs?
Huge percentage, so 50-60%, depending on if you combine the CUVs in there as well.
Yeah. What about EVs? We always talk about Tesla. I know you guys have not been Tesla fans over the years, but
it's a great product.
You think where is the EV market right now?
So we are really excited about what Porsche's doing in there. So with the Taycan coming out, thrilled to be seeing that entering into the marketplace. And there's a lot of great product coming from the traditional manufacturers.
The people who want to buy that vehicle, are they buying it because it's an EV, or are they buying it because it's a Porsche?
Both, right? So if you think about the deposits, I mean, that thing's already sold out.
Right.
And so it's going to be pretty amazing when it comes. It's already pre-sold, and it's going to be amazing.
But when you think about it, people talk about the market for EVs, as if it's a separate market. And I always have wondered whether that's the right way to think about it.
Not anymore. No, I think it's a great question. So I think the market for EVs, and think about hybrids, everything in between, is really about customer demand, customer preference.
It's always more than one. When you bought that Highlander, was it because it was a 4-cylinder or because it was a minivan? Which of it really got you most excited?
Well, the Highlander's not exactly a minivan.
If you have 3 children and you
close enough.
If you don't want to own a minivan,
there's not a lot of 3-row choices.
And you need 3 rows with kids, it's not a bad way to go.
I agree. I agree with that. I have a minivan.
There's
nothing wrong with that.
Utility vehicle.
It's a
I just looked up what the new Porsche looks like. I'm thinking maybe
it's pretty nice, right?
Before the segment ends.
Oh my God!
Tell everybody what you're supporting.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm wearing them right here.
We raised over
my
20
pink
million.
shoes.
Really proud of our 26,000 associates.
Right.
So we had Drive Pink Across America today.
Right.
We had that in October 15th. We had that. We delivered thousands of care bags to both adults and children cancer patients. And it's really a common purpose that unites the company, both customers, employees, and all of us at AutoNation.
Those are like size 13s. You're swimming in those things.
I've got a pair as well.
Mine are comfy.
Well, you got so much room in there. I mean, God almighty, you got 6 inches of room.
Great commuter shoes. You can wear them all over the city.
Cheryl, thank you.
Thanks for having me today.
Fantastic. Thanks.
All right, still to come on Squawk Box, wildfires continue to tear across California as the massive Kincaid fire continues to burn, and now new fires emerging overnight. Jane Wells is in Los Angeles. She has a preview of what's coming up. Jane, what can you tell us?
Hey, Becky, fire doesn't care if you're rich or poor. We are in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in Los Angeles where they're trying to get control of the fire. Several homes lost. They get our first since utility company.
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything. Or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
It's another Tuesday morning, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to see spectacular coral reefs and white sand beaches. Fly from London Gatwick to Mauritius with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £949 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Why is Lizzie going rental for Fizzy Haze? Is it because her flat is so beautiful and spacious? Snazzy! Or has roof terrace, garden and party room? Surprising! Or because it's 18 minutes to Paddington? Easy! With friendly staff on hand to take any deliveries? Amazing! Or just because her fuzzy friend can live there too? Find your new home at fizzyhaze.com. Fizzy Living, reinventing renting.
There's something for everybody this Halloween at Aldi. Dead good sweets, decorations, face paints. Be afraid. Be very afraid to miss out on these shockingly low prices. In store now. Everybody get to Aldi for an amazing Halloween.
Halloween's back, all right.
Time for this morning's Market Movers. Dom Chu joins us right now with that. Dom.
All right, top of the morning to you, Andrew. Let's start our check of earnings movers this morning with shares of ConocoPhillips. The oil and gas exploration and production company is helping to kick off big cap energy earnings this week. Shares are higher by about 1% or so on very thin pre-market volume so far. It posted profits and revenues at both top analyst estimates due in part to increased production in key geographies, including the continental U.S., Alaska, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Then we've got shares of Xerox, which are higher by close to around 4% at this stage, roughly 5,000 shares of pre-market volume. The digital document and data solutions company also posted a beat on both profits and revenues. As a result, it raised its full-year guidance, thanks in part to the addition of new corporate contracts. And then we'll end on shares of Shopify, which are down by around 7% or so pre-market, roughly 60,000 shares of volume. The e-commerce company posted a surprise loss on better than expected revenues. The loss was driven in part by more spending in order to grow its customer network. Shopify did announce that it passed 1 million merchants on its platform. So, Joe, those are the movers so far this morning. I'll send things back over to you.
All right, coming up, thanks, Don. Coming up, an update on the raging wildfires in California. Here's the futures at this hour, about where they've been for most of the pre-market session, down about 37 on the Dow. The S&P giving back 5.5 from the record level it hit yesterday, and NASDAQ indicated down about 27. We'll be right back.
Laura. She's a can-do spirit with a brilliant idea.
Brilliant? I mean, that's a bit.
Brilliant, Laura. Own it. Think what it took.
That 3 million should be 5. Oh, wait, the Brazil thing.
It's Paraguay, and that makes it 9.
9 billion? We don't have the people.
Absolutely right.
No pipeline. Nope. Check the spreadsheet.
You know who knows? Tom. Tom's on a plane.
Tom no longer works here.
It was a great idea, but the real brilliance was in how she got everyone on the same page.
Easy. Smart sheet.
When everyone works as one, you achieve more. That's Smart Sheet.
This is Jeff, applying for a job.
Thank you.
And getting it.
Oh.
This is Jeff's new boss, Susan, closing a big deal and expensing lunch. This is Sean, a waiter, a husband, and now a father. This is Helen, clocking out at the end of a really rewarding day. And this is Jeff again, making his wife's day even better. This is Paycom, doing more for your workforce.
Simply Safe on. Home.
The sound of home, sweet home. Funny. Statistics show guys in my profession avoid places with home security. Still, only 1 in 5 houses has it. You know, maybe it's because traditional security companies make it such a pain. Robbing you blind with hidden costs and contracts, which, as a career larcenist, I gotta respect. But there's only one security system that's good enough for my house and my family. Simply Safe. With whole home protection, Simply Safe watches every door and window. With motion and glass break sensors and a smart lock that lets you lock and unlock your home from anywhere. Plus, Simply Safe is just $15 a month with no contract, so I'm never locked in. I've been there. Not my thing. So take it from an expert. Get Simply Safe and protect home like a pro.
Visit simplysafe.com for a limited time offer.
Tulip mania
Tulip prices hit rock bottom.
was the first market crash.
Get out. Go on.
In these uncertain times, you can count on Gamebridge.
The time has come for a spell to be cast, for it's Halloween on today at last. The costumes, the scares, the monsters at play. I summon you now to Halloween on today.
As wildfires rage across California, Edison International, a major power supplier in the state, prepares to release earnings. Joining us right now for a look at how utility companies and their customers are being affected, we are joined by Jane Wells, who is on the front lines with this right now. Jane, tell us how this is all shaking out.
Let me just, give you a scene. This is part of the Getty Fire. This is in the hills above Brentwood, one of the most expensive neighborhoods in Los Angeles, and people are going to have to stay out of their multi-million-dollar homes for at least another night, according to the mayor. We'll get some more information later, but this is one of the homes that was destroyed here. 8 homes destroyed. They only have 5% containment so far. This is LADWP territory, but it's surrounded by affected areas covered by Southern California Edison. And after the bell, we will start to get a sense of what these outages and these fires are costing utilities. The street for Edison International is looking for a 4% drop in revenues to about $4.1 billion for the third quarter, 1% rise in earnings to $1.58. But as more winds are expected to come in later this week and more outages, the governor is now ordering an investigation into whether these outages are excessive, if the utility company should be penalized for them, and whether they should be barred from charging people for power that they're not getting during the outages. His particular outrage is leveled at PG&E. Listen.
PG&E has not been in this position before. We would like them to consider reimbursements, and we're going to be very forceful in advancing that. I want as many people bidding for the assets of Pacific Gas and Electric as possible. I couldn't be more clear. I just hope more people make a bid for the assets so we have a competitive process moving up into June 30th of next year, when we have set the goal and date and mandate for PG&E to get out of bankruptcy.
Yeah, well, he's even floating the idea of getting Warren Buffett to maybe make a bid for PG&E. Uber, meantime, is offering free rides to and from evacuation centers from those who've been displaced. And Elon Musk is tweeting that he's offering $1,000 off if you buy a Tesla solar and Powerwall system, so you don't have to depend on the grid when the grid goes dark. Guys?
Jane, just in terms of thinking that it's excessive to have these shutdowns, these power outages, how can they argue that when some of these fires may have very well been started by lines that weren't shut down?
Well, yes, that is the conundrum. What kind of technology and modeling are you using to make these decisions? Certainly, they will argue there would have been more fires or worse fires if they hadn't done the outages, but many more people. In fact, PG&E is getting ready after turning the lights on last night in the Bay Area during that fire up there, is getting ready to shut down to about 600,000 more customers this morning. It's an iffy thing. It's an iffy thing, Becky.
Jane, we want to talk much more with you about this, just what it means for the lives of Californians out there. Obviously, some huge changes underfoot, and we're just watching these fires. Jane's there and will continue to bring us updates on all of that, but we want to thank her for her reports this morning.
Okay. Jane, thank you. For more on the mounting pressure on California utilities companies, let's welcome Congressman Ro Khanna, Democrat of California, whose district includes communities in Silicon Valley. Congressman, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's a terrible situation. We can talk about the business side of this. We can talk about the human side of this. First, just give us an update on what you know, and then I want to get into what you think should happen.
Well, it's devastating for many people across California. Many are without power. Of course, homes have been destroyed by these fires. Totally unrelated, I actually had a staff member in my district who had a fire that almost burned his house, not because of the wildfires, because PG&E had another outage. So these PG&E lines that are causing fires aren't just causing fires and wildfires. This is a common occurrence across California, and it's outrageous.
And in terms of how to manage PG&E, what would you do?
I would have them as a public utility. The facts are very clear. They have failed to make investments in the upgrading of their infrastructure. The regulators have been way too loose. There's not enough accountability. It's time for the state to take ownership of PG&E and make sure that they are doing what they need to do to keep the power on and to keep people safe. I mean, in the 21st century, when you have a state that has Apple, Google, Tesla in it, there is no excuse that we can't get power to our people on a regular basis.
Congressman, I'd argue that there are decades and decades of underinvestment in the infrastructure there. If the state takes over, where do you get the money to make those much-needed investments?
Well, we need to have state investment, and we also need to have federal investment. The reality is that we have underinvested in the smart grid. We have underinvested both as a state and as a federal government. But those are investments that were needed, and we need to invest more in forest management. We did not have the prescribed fires that were necessary. We did not have the brush clearing that was necessary. This has been a decades of neglect process that has led to this crisis.
Do you have any idea how much you might need for that? What kind of funding?
You know, I want to look at the experts to see what the cost would be, but it's probably going to be in the billions of dollars. I mean, there has been systematic neglect in the infrastructure and in the forest management.
Congressman, could you see either a public-private partnership or a way to incentivize a series of companies to come into the state, perhaps to compete against each other and to invest?
You know, the investment model with regulators hasn't worked, and the reason it hasn't worked is that the regulators have been captured either by special interests or have not been strong enough. So at this point, I don't have confidence in the regulators to do their job. And the reality is this is not a business where you have multiple competition. What I would encourage, though, is the state to own the utilities and then to allow more local municipal power. We have that in my district, Silicon Valley Power, owned by Santa Clara City. If we could get more cities to have municipal power, that would be good. But I hope the governor will call for making PGE a public utility.
I'm just trying to understand how you're going to ultimately finance it and whether there is some form of a public-private partnership where you bring in some private money, perhaps, to help you fund it. Of course, it becomes a toll then, and I imagine there'll be questions there. But you don't see even an opportunity there.
I think if it's a public-run utility and we need certain private investment, I mean, I wouldn't rule that out, and especially if we can also allow for public utilities on cities. But I think the key is that the state needs to run this. It's not enough to have just regulators. But I'm open for the financing model to see if we need to rely on some private investment.
Okay. We're going to leave the conversation there. Congressman, appreciate you being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
When we come back, did Dennis Muhlenberg and other executives know about the risks of the 737 MAX at Boeing? We will preview today's big hearing with Senator Roger Wicker. And later, Senator Ted Cruz will be our special guest. We'll talk to him about this hearing as well. Squawk Box will be right back.
Morning, everyone.
It's another Tuesday morning. Yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to enjoy a warm Bayesian welcome.
How are you doing? Enjoying the sunshine?
Fly from London Gatwick to Barbados with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £699 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Can I have chemo at home? It's only suitable
I've
for
heard
a couple of
treatment
types of
can
cancer.
depend on the type of treatment. So literally just depends
It's what the doctor will decide.
When you search one question about cancer, you end up with millions of results which contradict each other. For clear and uncomplicated information, come to Cancer Research UK. Visit us online or give us a call on 0808 800 40 40. Cancer Research UK. Together, we will beat cancer.
This autumn, as the nights draw in, beat the cold with Now TV. Curl up with the latest blockbusters, including Bohemian Rhapsody and Hotel Mumbai. Plus, with over 40 new movies added each month, from Aquaman to How to Train Your Dragon 3, Now TV's got you covered, wherever you feel like watching. Get cozy with the latest and best movies for just $11.99 a month. Search Now TV today. 18 plus month passes auto renews unless cancelled. Terms apply.
The Senate Commerce Committee is getting ready to grill Boeing CEO Dennis Muhlenberg later this morning regarding the state of the embattled 737 MAX fleet. Joining us right now is Senator Roger Wicker. He is the chairman of the Commerce Committee. He's going to be spearheading this hearing, and sir, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
What is it that you'd like to hear from Mr. Muhlenberg this morning?
Well, this is a tragedy that cost 346 human lives. We need to find out what went wrong. We know it was preventable, and I think what we're going to find out, it was there were mistakes at the corporate level, mistakes at the regulatory level, and there was human error involved. We want to make sure the planes are absolutely safe before they're back in the air. But if they are safe, the traveling public and our economy need these planes, and the tens and tens of thousands of workers who depend on this industry need to get back to work too. So where did we go wrong in the past? Is it fixed now? How do we avoid it in the future? Things of that nature.
Senator, I don't know if you've seen the Wall Street Journal this morning, but on the front page there is an article saying that the FAA had statistical analysis that showed a second crash was very likely to happen within a year of that first crash. They ultimately chose not to ground the fleet anyway. That second crash took place. They did that because they relied heavily on Boeing's initial flight simulator test results where they were using very experienced pilots. Do you have faith in the FAA?
Well, I think that that article is absolutely correct, and the question needs to be asked, if you had this to do over again, what decisions would you make? And that's a question to be asked at the corporate level and at the FAA. At this point, we've learned a lot, and I have confidence in the leadership of the FAA now. As you know, we have a new director, and the leadership has sort of been ratified and confirmed in both houses, in the Republican Senate and the Democratic House, because of the unusual nature of the FAA. So I think we have good leadership now. I think gross mistakes were made and lives were lost because of decisions that were made, yes.
The new head of the FAA doesn't seem to be very happy with Boeing right now about not getting some of the communications that had been made available to criminal investigators, but not to the FAA with what they're doing right now. How concerned are you about that revelation?
And I'm not happy about that either. As a matter of fact, we've made no secret about that with Boeing, and I intend to begin with that during my 5 minutes of opening statements. I'm going to make that very, very clear. At this late date, to withhold anything, even if it's been given to another government agency, is hard to explain, and we're going to let Boeing address that. I hope their response will be that it was a mistake, that they fully realize that it was a mistake, and that they will never ever do that again.
Is that enough?
Well, we'll see, but an acknowledgement that giving it to one agency and not giving it to the other is not sufficient will be helpful.
Senator,
you know, the main thing we need to know, we need to know when this sort of major transformation takes place again, can we have a confidence level that these sorts of mistakes, these sorts of failures will not happen again? I think probably the MAX is going to be ready to fly fairly soon. But what about the next time there's an upgrade? Will the system fail as it did in this one?
Senator, one of the questions about the system failing was raised in an article over the weekend in the New York Times about some new laws and rules that were put in place around self-regulation. In fact, more and more of the regulatory burden for these aircraft are being taken on by the companies, in this case Boeing themselves, and lobbied for, by the way, these rules by Boeing. These were bipartisan laws, and they were signed by both sides at the time. But in retrospect, do you think that those were a mistake?
We're going to look at that for sure. Let me just make sure we understand. Those laws were not yet in place
100%,
when these accidents took place.
100%. But as we're trying now to look forward, and given that part of the argument looking back on why we even got into this situation is both the closeness, perhaps, of the relationship between Boeing and the FAA, and the fact that so much of that regulatory effort is being put on the aircraft maker itself already.
I can assure you and the listening public that we are going to delve deeply into that. We've been looking at it. We're going to talk about it very extensively at today's hearing, and today will not be the last day we look at that. It's a very good point. I don't think the law itself, which had not yet gone into place,
correct,
was the cause of either
I don't
of these,
want to suggest it was.
but the climate
I think there's a larger issue, exactly.
Yes, right.
Senator, Boeing itself thinks that it will have at least one regulatory body that will approve the 737 MAX to return to the airs by the end of this year. That's just about 2 months away. Does that sound like a time frame that you could answer all the questions that you have about what's going on before you actually see it brought back to the market?
I think it's within the realm of possibility. We don't know what the information will be. I know there have been some 800 tests with pilots from all over the world, pilots whose first language is not English, who have various levels of training. All of that has been done. Let me say, when it's ready for the first passenger flight, I want it to be a flight that I'd be happy to get on, and that the committee and the leadership in Washington are absolutely convinced is totally safe.
Senator, just very quickly, because you brought up the idea of less experienced pilots potentially having troubles with this, do you think that additional pilot training should be a requirement before, again, this can be brought back to the skies?
I think additional pilot training would have been a big help in this situation. You know, the first accident, the Lion accident, took place a year ago today. There was some 5 months in between, and we have a right to ask if the crew of the Ethiopian crash had been fully apprised and fully made aware of the gravity of the situation, would the second crash have taken place? So yes, these are very complicated aircraft, the most complex in the world, and these are human beings of various levels of expertise that are expected to fly them.
Senator, two quick questions. One more on the aircraft itself, which is, we've had Ralph Nader on this program several times since these crashes took place. He says the aircraft itself is fatally flawed. That no change in the MCAS system or anything else can actually fundamentally change the physics of the plane. What do you think of that assessment?
Well, I've spoken with Mr. Nader, and also he is a family member of one of the crash victims, and certainly has a point of view. I do not agree with Mr. Nader in that respect. I think this plane is eminently fixable. We need to make sure that it has been fixed before it's back with the traveling public. But I don't think it's a hopeless cause by any means. I understand that he has that point of view. I think it's frankly a view held by a very, very small minority of people.
And then, Senator, before we go, I did want to ask you about these impeachment hearings and how you intend to vote.
Well, I am not at all inclined to vote to remove President Trump from office. I do want to say that I look forward to a vote in the House of Representatives, and I've been calling on the House to do the impeachment as was done in the Nixon inquiry and the Clinton impeachment. And so, to the extent that there may be a resolution that will give us a comfort level taking place later on this week, I think it's a positive.
It's not a vote on a. It's not a vote on an inquiry, though. It's a vote on it. I don't know what it is. It's still not.
Well, you know, I haven't read the resolution.
It's still not.
I read the announcement yesterday, and you make a valid point. We're going to see what the resolution is, and I hope it is in keeping with the precedents that were set during Nixon and Clinton.
But, Senator, do you reserve any reservation in terms of wanting to learn more information about this situation before making a decision?
Well, absolutely. I'm going to listen to all of the information. But you asked me a pointed question, and the answer right now is that I really can't conceive of a situation based on what we know now, based on the facts that we know now, that would cause me to vote to convict and remove Donald Trump from office.
Senator Wicker, I want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, coming up, the Fed kicking off a two-day meeting. What investors are expecting, we'll revisit that. We talked about it a little bit already. The futures at this hour indicated down 30, NASDAQ indicated down 25.5, much more on today's big hearing involving Boeing Senator Ted Cruz. Wow, I like that beard. Anyway, he'll be our guest when we return.
So, how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 5?
It's another Tuesday morning, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and enjoy stunning white sand and crystal blue sea. Fly from London Gatwick to the Maldives with British Airways from £300 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
So it's not fair. Self-service checkouts. Let's forget the fact you're now working on a supermarket checkout. As soon as you put anything past the scanner and placed it down on that bagging area, you literally just nudge.
From TalkTalk. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Fairer broadband for everyone.
Get the brands you love at littlewoods.com. Nothing beats a winter night in with the family and a box set. Get the LG 4K 43-inch TV with HDR for an unmissable $369. All with inclusive delivery and free returns. Hurry, offer ends 7th of November. Own it. Shop now at littlewoods.com.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price. Just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
Oh no. 1 kebab, 4 cabs, 3 karaoke booths.
But really?
You can't always recall what you spent on a night out, but you could map the location of those transactions on our mobile banking app.
Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. Not available for every transaction. T's and C's apply.
Earnings alert, quarterly results from General Motors, the numbers, instant market reaction, and the automaker CFO will join us live.
Under pressure, Boeing CEO will be grilled on Capitol Hill today. Senator Ted Cruz will be among the questioners, but first, he'll join us live.
Plus, our guest host for the hour, we're going to welcome legendary venture capitalist Ben Horowitz as the final hour of Squawk Box begins right now.
Live from the most powerful city in the world, New York, this is Squawk Box.
And welcome back to Squawk Box here on CNBC, live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Joe Kernan, along with Becky Quick and Andrew Ross Sorkin. U.S. equity futures in the pre-market session have been in the red for for the entire session. In fact, down 43 now, 44 on the Dow. NASDAQ indicated down 27. S&P down 6 after trading at a new high. We've had Pfizer, we've had Merck, waiting on General Motors. Treasury yields 182 on the 10-year this morning.
Okay, earnings again, once dominating today's headlines. Among the names to watch, we got Merck posting better than expected profit. It also narrowed and raised its full-year earnings forecast. You can look at that stock up 2.5% right now. Rival drug company and fellow Dow component Pfizer also beating Wall Street forecasts. Pfizer also said 2019 research and development expenses will be less than it had originally forecast. I don't know if that's perverse news, but of course the stock went up on that as well. Becky.
All right, GM releasing its quarterly results. Let's get the numbers from Phil LeBeau. Phil.
Beat on the top and the bottom line by General Motors, the company earning $1.72 a share in the third quarter. The estimate on the street was for $1.31. There was an impact because of the strike, the UAW strike during the last 2 weeks of September. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Basically comes out to a 52-cent impact, but $1.72 is how much the company earned in the third quarter. Revenue beat by a wide margin, $35.5 billion. Most analysts were expecting $33.6 billion. North America continues to be what powers this company. $3 billion in earnings in the third quarter. Trucks, crossovers, record production in terms of crossovers, and the ramp up of full-size, heavy-duty pickup trucks, all of those helping the bottom line for General Motors. Now let's talk about the impact of the UAW strike. In the third quarter, the impact was $1 billion. So they would have made $4 billion theoretically, if not for the strike by the UAW. It also has a full calendar year impact of $2 billion or $2.9 billion, works out to about $2 a share. As a result, General Motors is lowering its full year earnings guidance. Previously, it expected to earn between $6.50 and $7.50 a share. Now the company says it expects to earn between $4.50 and $4.80 a share. It is also going to be adjusting how much it saves through cost savings that it planned to go through 2020 because of closing of some plants. That was going to be $4.5 billion in cost savings. Now it's going to be $4 to $4.5 billion, primarily because the Hamtramck plant, which was scheduled to be closed, they're not going to be closing that. That's part of the deal with the UAW. Don't forget, we're going to be talking with the CFO of General Motors, Divya Surya-Devara. That's coming up at 8:45. We'll not only talk about the GM UAW strike impact, but also the guidance. Again, guys, GM beating by a wide margin, $1.72 a share. Most on the street expecting $1.31. Back to you.
All right, Phil, thank you very much. We will see you in just a little bit. In the meantime, also on the earnings front, Beyond Meat out with its earnings after the market closed yesterday. The company beat expectations and it reported its first quarterly profit. But the stock is down sharply this morning. Spending surged in the quarter, and Beyond Meat is planning more store discounts as competition heats up. Several Wall Street analysts downgraded the stock overnight, including JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Credit Suisse, and Jefferies. Check it out right now. That stock is down by almost 20%. Today, though, marks the end of a lockup period for early backers as well. Even with this move, you got to remember the stock only went public 6 months ago. It's up about 240% since its IPO back in May. Joining us right now is Ethan Brown. He's the founder and CEO of Beyond Meat. And Ethan, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, wild ride over the last 6 months. Did you anticipate that you would see this type of moves, these dramatic swings up and down?
You know, we're really focused on the long-term prospects for the business. It's been interesting to watch all of this, but overall, we believe that we're moving forward the fundamentals of the business in a way that's really remarkable. Whether you look at McDonald's or you look at Subway or Dunkin' or KFC, these tests that we're involved in, Those are some of the largest names in food, and we're partnering with them to bring our products to the consumer. So we're excited about where we are.
Still, when you see swings like this, massive swings to the upside, big swings to the downside too, that's got to have an impact on your workforce and people who have money riding on this.
Yeah, I think for us, the effort here is as much a mission to build a large and sustainable global protein company that will be around for decades to come. So we don't look at the 6 or 12-month period in the stock market. We look more about, are we building the right fundamentals for the business? And we think we're doing that.
How much do you think consumer behavior with this product and others is being driven by taste or diet or something like that, or this sort of larger idea around climate and sustainability?
You know, what's really interesting about what we're doing is if you look at the older consumer, they're coming to our brand mostly around health and concerns maybe around cardiovascular or carcinogenic issues. If you look at the younger generations, it's much more driven around climate, around animal welfare, and also a lifestyle. And so if you think about this Dunkin' product here, this is about 50% less fat in our sausage patty than the leading sausage patty on the market. It's 44% less saturated fat, it's 37% less sodium, but more protein and more iron. The idea is that we can build a piece of meat directly from plants. You don't need an animal to do that. What the animal's doing is consuming a lot of vegetation, a lot of water. They're using their biology to organize that in the form of muscle, which we then harvest as meat. Well, we can use technology today to pull those inputs directly from plants and organize them directly from plants for the consumer on their plate. So people are excited by that.
You beat on the bottom line last night, but you also talked on the call about how you're going to have to offer some discounts. Is that just because there's so much competition that's jumping into some of these things?
Not at all. I mean, if you look at our velocity this quarter over the same period last year, we're up 144%. And people say that competition is coming. It's been here. We've been competing for a long time. We feel very comfortable about where we are. We have a myopic focus on doing one thing, which is building a perfect piece of meat directly from plants. We're not beholden to a supply chain that's tied to a traditional industry. We're not competing among different divisions. That is our sole focus, and we'll continue to execute well against that.
The competition's been here for a while, if you look at Impossible Burger or others, but as you just kind of alluded to, you do have big players like a Tyson or others who are kind of stepping things up.
Right.
Those traditional processors and packagers who, they don't care where they're getting the revenue from, they just want to follow any market, and they are very heavily financed and ready to go into a fight. What happens on that front?
Well, I think we enjoy being the challenger brand. I think the consumer is looking for something new from somebody new. I think it's very hard for an incumbent to focus the way we do, to move as quickly as we do. We're very aggressive here in the United States. We're aggressive in the EU. We're aggressive in Asia. We have a single goal. We're not competing among different interests. So my view is that as more entrants get into the market, it will raise awareness, but we'll continue to lead it. And that's what we're built to do.
Ethan, does Beyond Meat have plans for pets to supply it all? Because they make those already.
It's a great question. We get asked that all the time. And there may be in the future some interest within, particularly our research and development team, because the synergies are strong. But right now we're focused on 3 core categories: beef, pork, and poultry for human consumption. Yeah. That's
the reason I went this way is because I've got, God, I love dogs. I mean, I look at the cover of the Post today. That dog, I want to meet that dog, even though it's classified. But I have 2 big German Shepherds, and
great dogs.
We're talking about really, tens of hundreds of thousands of years of evolution as carnivores.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm just wondering, is there some missing? Can you duplicate what carnivores need with plant-based food? Absolutely.
It's a great question, and it's one that I work on all the time. What I had to do to start this business was to understand meat better than most, right? And so if you unpack meat at its highest elements, it's essentially amino acids, lipids, trace minerals, vitamins, and it's predominantly water, just like our bodies. Right. We can pull all of that from plants, including exactly what a dog would need for their nutrition. So as you're building a piece of meat directly from plants, you have a blank canvas to start with. It's a question of what do you want to put in and what do you want to leave out?
I'm just wondering whether there's some X factor in there.
There's not.
There isn't.
No.
Because when there is a pet food company that sent me, and I'm like, God, I got German Shepherds. I want to feed these animals meat. But so you're saying that's just a preconception that I don't need to have.
Yeah, it's really a change in perception in the sense that do you have to insist that meat comes from a chicken, cow, or pig or other animal, or can you think about meat in terms of composition? Once you start to think about meat as an assembly of protein, fat, and water, then you can start to pull it from any source, and a German Shepherd would not be able to tell the difference.
I just see a lion just like looking at this going, oh, this again, instead of looking over at an Impala. And
So I wish I had video with me here. I'll show you, because I, of course, have fed all of our products to our dogs, and I love to watch them jump up and snatch it out of my hand.
So it doesn't have to be. Okay. So then it shouldn't be for humans either, obviously. Correct. And vegans seem fine.
What's the hardest kind of meat to replicate?
As you get more transparent on the plate, things like bacon, where the fat and the protein is so clearly distributed in a way the consumer can see, that's harder. When it's ground, it's a little easier. Steak is harder.
Building it up is another.
But things like ground are a little bit easier. Sausage is easier because there's so much spice in it, right? Yeah.
So it kind of masks a lot of that.
We should make some carb, not carb, but some type of snacks for me.
We got something coming.
You do?
Not Beyond Meat, but there's another company.
All right. I'm gonna eat this, and I hope I like it. I do.
You're jumping into this?
You love eating on TV. I don't know why.
I'm just hungry.
No, I know.
It's morning.
Ethan, one huge question is what happens with the expiration of the lockup today? I think 77% of the shares outstanding can now be sold today. These are early investors, employees, others who have that. First of all, what are you doing?
I'm not doing a thing. My focus is entirely on growing this business. People have asked me, do you want to do a partnership with a larger company? I have no interest in that anymore. What I'm interested in is becoming that larger company. I have a goal to make this a $40 billion company in terms of revenue. I want to be very active in Asia, very active in Europe, very active here in the United States. Again, think about those marquee partnerships that we're lining up, whether test with McDonald's, test with Dunkin', test with KFC, test with Subway. That's in a single quarter, right? So if you see that's progress, I'm not sure you'd want to.
Those are tests. How many of those do you think will wind up in full-time deals?
We've never had a test that hasn't gone forward in one degree or another.
This is passing my test.
There we go. And so he's enjoying something that he loves, but he's having significantly less fat, significantly less saturated fat, et cetera. No less sodium, et cetera.
You are not going to sell, but what do you think about your partners along the way? People who are early in this, or maybe employees who are looking at this thinking, I can't afford to ride a wild swing like this. What do you think?
I think it's more around, for the employees, it's certainly more around, are there personal circumstances they may have that they just need liquidity?
Buy a house,
correct,
kid going to college.
Right. I think the early investors, it's the investor mandate. What does their firm require them to do?
Sausage is deadly. There's no nitrates, there's nothing in this.
What's great about this, and people are very focused on things like saturated fat and sodium, as well they should be.
And nitrates,
right? But I would recommend people look at a movie called Game Changers. That really spells out the implications of heavy meat consumption from a diet perspective. Or read a book by Dean Ornish called Undo It. Again, it's much broader than just saturated fat or sodium. The reasons that people want to avoid animal protein consumption at the high levels we do today, it's things like TMAO and insulin-like growth factor.
Right.
And
although the recent studies, we whenever we decide something is absolutely fact,
find a different doctor.
You find it, and not necessarily, but studies that have shown maybe carcinogenic trends in red meat. Right. You go back and oh my God, they were eating all these fries too. Their lifestyle included all these other variables, and there's been no absolutely clean evidence that they're done in a scientific setting. Yes. It's always in hindsight. So
there is a lot of difficulty in teasing out, and it's correlations. It's not causation.
Correlations, right?
Yeah. But I think the preponderance of evidence is around these high levels are probably not good for us.
Probably not good to have bacon like 6 times a day. Probably.
I'd say that's fair.
Offhand, and sausage with tequila. Probably not.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Ethan, thanks for coming in.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Coming up when we return, we're going to welcome our guest host for the rest of the show. Venture capitalist Ben Horowitz is here. We're going to talk about WeWork, Facebook, and his new book, and much more. Stay tuned. You're watching Squawk on CNBC.
Get the best of Squawk Box every day in our new podcast. Subscribe to Squawk Pod on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast.
Squawk CEO Call.
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Then it was time for glow-in-the-dark mini-golf. I got a hole-in-one. Well, 3. I'm a bit rusty, okay? There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
Why is Lizzie going rental for Fizzy Haze? Is it because her flat is so beautiful and spacious? Snazzy! Or has roof terrace, garden and party room? Surprising! Or because it's 18 minutes to Paddington? Easy! With friendly staff on hand to take any deliveries. Amazing! Buzzing! Or just because her fuzzy friend can live there too? Find your new home at fizzyhaze.com. Fizzy Living, reinventing renting.
There's something for everybody this Halloween at Aldi. Dead good sweets, decorations, face paints. Be afraid. Be very afraid to miss out on these shockingly low prices. In store now. Everybody get to Aldi for an amazing Halloween.
Halloween's back, alright. If you're collecting your prescription, don't assume you can claim it for free. Not all benefits entitle you to free prescriptions. And if you claim when you're not entitled, you could face a penalty charge of up to £100. Thankfully, there's a simple way to find out if you should be paying. Search Check Before You Tick online and use our eligibility checker to find out if your benefits mean you can claim for free. Or you can ask your pharmacy team. So always remember to check before you tick. This was brought to you by the NHS.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Futures right now are indicated down about 31 points this morning. Pre-market, we've got Merck, we've got Pfizer and GM, all factoring into what we're seeing as the S&P is down 4 points from all-time highs on the S&P. NASDAQ indicated down 21 and change. Alphabet part of the problem there.
And famed venture capitalist investor Ben Horowitz is out with a new book this morning titled What You Do Is Who You Are, which takes a look at what history can teach us about the definition of culture and ways technology companies can better adapt at scale. We're going to get to the book in just a second, but talking about culture, I want to get your take on a couple of reports out there right now that are very much on this issue of culture. Report in the New York Times just yesterday, Mike Isaac reporting on a letter that Facebook employees sent to Mark Zuckerberg asking the CEO to reverse the company's policy of exempting political ads from its own fact-checking program, and that has now gone public. And this is an issue, by the way, it's confronting clearly Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, but you're seeing the rise of employees at companies, especially in Silicon Valley, all across the board. And this fundamentally is about culture. What do you do?
Yeah, it's tricky, and I think it's different if you're a normal company than if you're Facebook or Google, right, where you're in the kind of policy swirl, because it does get more complicated. And then, with the Facebook letter, I would say it was like 250 employees out of however many they have, which is a much bigger number. So it's it's not a kind of wildfire. It's like a few angry people.
Well, the question is it a few angry people? Or is it actually much more representative of a much larger group of people who didn't want to put their name to it, right? That's the other complicated part to this.
Yeah, well, there was and look, there was a day when, kind of coming out in public against a company and leaking that, you're just fired, right? Right. That's the way the culture runs. I think that in these kinds of companies, they have tolerated it for good reason, and they wanted this openness where, okay, we need to get the ideas from everyone. But then there's another thing, which is, are we taking it outside of the house, or are we keeping it inside the house? Right. And look, culturally, you want to be a cohesive team. You want it to be us against the world. It gets, I don't want to overly criticize these companies, because no other company is in a situation like Facebook, right? Nobody's getting Senate hearings and all these kinds of things. So they're in a very special thing. But for the normal company, no, you don't want employees telling the world that you disagree with something. You disagree and commit. That's sort of the right culture.
You disagree and commit. But then the question is, in a company like this, and these are your companies to some degree, what do you do? Do you say I can't have this debate in public like this?
Well, it's tricky because they have a PR issue, right? Like, so, you know, and I mean, look, Mark Zuckerberg got attacked by a senator the other day because he didn't know how many LGBT employees worked on Libra. Now, forget about the fact that, like, nobody knows how many of each category work on every project in their company because people get hired and fired every day. It's illegal to ask somebody if they're LGBT. Like, that's not even legal. And so you have a legislator asking that. So he's in such, like, he's gone through the looking glass in such a way that it's kind of hard to apply what's going on Facebook to anything else. But look, I think in general, yeah, he should, to some degree, not tolerate people taking company business outside of the company because this is not just like, oh, should we release this product or should we build that product, which is a normal company issue. This is like, how do elections work in the United States of America? Are we undermining democracy?
But what would
this
happen
is
if
a
you
different
fired all these
category.
people who signed this letter right now? That would, like, the blowback he would get.
The blowback would be unbelievable. So, like, I don't really think he has a choice to do that because it feels now like he's kind of crossed over and they've crossed over into, like, Facebook itself is the biggest country in the world, you know, is a little bit how it's viewed. So he has all the citizens of Facebook who may be upset. And so it's, you know, he's in a very special, like, place. And without, I mean, that's the one company where,
so
like, it's hard to
book, if he doesn't have it already.
Oh, he definitely has it. Yeah.
He would come away with what, though? You think he would say to himself, I'm doing it right, I'm doing it wrong?
Look, I think in general, Facebook does a very good job with their culture. Like, you know, despite the criticism they get, it's super cohesive. They execute extremely well. They push forward into the future, as they're doing with, you know, things like Libra. But they're just in an almost unique position in the world.
Right.
Nobody else has the Facebook situation.
Yeah, but, you know, we've had so many others. Look, Boeing has a situation, which is in the news
that's
today.
a more straightforward cultural case. They need to fire the CEO. Like,
they need to fire the CEO.
100%.
Okay. Why do you say that?
Well, because, look, somewhere along the line, like, no matter what you do on regulation, you're never going to know what the people in the company know. There's no question people in the company knew that the 737 should have been in the air. The fact that they didn't say it, the fact that earnings became more important culturally than safety at a company like Boeing, like, you need an object lesson, you need to cut somebody's head off. And, like, I don't think anybody's head other than the CEO is going to change the culture at that place.
Yeah, they offered up
in the way it needs to.
last week.
Yeah, of course. But that's not, like, if people are dying, that's a whole different category of thing.
Okay, I'll give you a not dying, different category. WeWork. We've been talking about that company for the last several weeks now, if not months.
No, that's an exciting one.
You look at the culture of that company, you look at Adam Newman, and you think...
Well, look, I think it had amazing cultural strengths and often the strength of a culture is related to its weakness. So, you know, it had this crazy optimism where, like, they were going to change the future of work, and they used it to raise a lot of money, but also attract an amazing kind of set of talent and kind of get this, you know, consumer brand for commercial real estate into the world, which is a very difficult thing to do. So it accomplished a lot with it. But the downside of an optimistic culture is always, like, what happens with bad news? Like, can you actually hear it? Or is it like, I don't want to hear bad news? And I think that at WeWork, like, for sure, whoever was going, you know, like, we don't actually have as much money as we thought we did. Like, all that kind of thing.
But so that's the question, though. How much?
You know, like, I don't think that news traveled.
People can talk about WeWork and say, look, it took a visionary to get it to this place.
Yes.
To get it to this place where it lost billions of dollars.
But the question is, here's a company that may be worth, I don't know, $7 billion. Maybe it'll ultimately be worth $10 billion or $15 billion if SoftBank gets its way. But there's a lot of people who went to work for the company because they thought it was going to be worth $47 billion.
No question. Yeah, no, like, and I think that, so that's always a tricky question, which is like, okay, is your market cap not what your investor paid for it? Is it like, you know, and how do you know that and so forth? But I do think, like, the big problem was the culture got away from reality. Like, the culture was so reality distorted that they couldn't hear what was really going on in the business. And look, I've interviewed people coming out of WeWork. I know there are people who knew they just didn't even know where the money was. I mean, not like fraud, like we didn't know. Like, we didn't know how much money we had. We didn't know how much was coming in. We didn't know how much was going out. And so, like, you get into that state. How do you get into that state? Well, it's because along the way, people are going, hey, look, our systems, our processes aren't keeping up with this business. And people are going, like, the bad news, we're changing the future of work. And, like, when the culture goes like that, you can get into a really, really bad spot. But it's not that unusual a cultural problem where if you have such a pronounced, strong culture that it drives you into a bad
big
place.
idea, and then the nuts and bolts, someone's got to be looking at it very closely.
Well, and your strength becomes your weaknesses. Like it, you can have a culture like that's hyper competitive, but doesn't, quite obey the law or these kinds of things. Right. And that's something that you have to design correctly.
I saw somebody saying, if you tell a 32-year-old man he's Jesus, he will believe you.
Well, that's also true. Right. Yeah. Please, nobody do that.
Ben's going to be sticking around. We're going to be talking a lot more about his book on culture and what it means in the world of business.
We may touch on crypto.
And crypto, and so much more. What you do is who you are.
I need to know how you like Libra and Bitcoin and how those two coexist.
Yeah, they're very different.
I know. I think Libra should be based on Bitcoin, not a fiat currency.
No, I don't think so. Because it won't work for payments because
you need stablecoin. So you like it as digital.
Well, it's got to be stable. So there's two problems with Bitcoin for payments. One is stability. Well, there's three, at least. One is stability. Two is transaction speeds. And then three is just programmability.
But it doesn't. Libra just sounds like PayPal or Venmo or something. It's not sexy like Bitcoin. Not distributed.
Marketing
aside,
we will just. All right, let's continue that conversation just a little bit.
Also, we've got this morning's stocks to watch, and then Senator Ted Cruz will join us live. Stay tuned. Squawk Box will be right back.
It's another Tuesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and enjoy stunning white sand and crystal blue sea. Fly from London Gatwick to the Maldives with British Airways from £300 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
She did it! Her first word! Listen, everyone. Mama. Oh, she's lovely. Mama. Oh, did you hear that?
Oh. Savings. Savings account.
Teaching your kids how to save may not be this easy, but you can get them learning good habits and skills from an early age, thanks to the range of children's savings accounts from Yorkshire Building Society. Just another example of real help with real life. Find out more at ybs.co.uk.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin.
With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price, just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
Coming up, Senator Ted Cruz. He's preparing to grill Boeing CEO this morning, but first he will join us live when Squawk Box comes right back. Maybe Ben will have some comments on what needs to happen to the CEO with Senator Cruz. We'll be right back.
Carl's all-change casserole.
So, Chloe walks in from school. Tears all over her face.
Daddy,
She says,
I don't want to eat animals anymore.
I blooming love my meat. But not as much as I love my little girl. That's why we've made some changes to our old favourite, sausage casserole. Now with meat-free Cumberlands, but still with my magic touch. A dollop of mango chutney. Just as tasty as it used to be.
Better, actually.
Make your own with the new Tesco Plant Chef range. Food Love Stories. Brought to you by Tesco.
Swinging a long drive, left field. He's got one now. Kurt Suzuki gives the Nationals the lead.
The excitement of the Fall Classic is here, and you can hear every call of the 2019 World Series on TuneIn Premium. The action continues tonight with Game 6 between the NL champion Washington Nationals and American League champion Houston Astros. Listen live at 8 Eastern as two of Major League Baseball's most storied franchises look to bring home the World Series title. The 2019 World Series is on TuneIn Premium. Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
The Better Network is now on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. Search the Better Network. That's the BETR Network. And then let us get you better prepared to better enjoy the day in sports. The NFL, college football, basketball, hockey, baseball. Sharpen your edge. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Be better informed. Be better prepared. Search the Better Network. That's BETR.
On the TED Podcast Work Life, organizational psychologist Adam Grant explores workplaces that can teach us how to make our jobs more meaningful.
This is Work Life, my new podcast with TED. You know, the TED Talks people. We spend about a quarter of our lives at work, and it really bothers me that so many workplaces are broken. So I became an organizational psychologist. My job is to fix other people's jobs.
Got a podcast on TuneIn to check out Work Life and see Adam.
Squawk here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. Let's get you caught up to date on some of the stories that investors are going to be talking about today. It's a pretty busy morning for corporate earnings with more notable companies reporting this hour. MasterCard reported profit of $2.15 a share. That beat the consensus estimate of $2.01. Like its rival Visa, MasterCard's results were helped by increased consumer spending using its cards. So there's a good sign for the economy. That stock is right now up by about 1.1%. Another mover on earnings this morning, the cereal and snack maker Kellogg. Profit came in at $1.03 a share, 12 cents better than expected. Results were helped by stronger sales of items like Pringles and Pop-Tarts, all kinds of other healthy eating too. That stock is up by 3.8%. And we're just about an hour away from fresh data on home prices. The Case-Shiller report for August is expected to show a 2% year-over-year increase in prices. That would be identical to the increase that we saw back in July.
Later this morning, Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg will face the full Commerce Committee to answer questions about the future of the 737 MAX. Joining us now, Senator Ted Cruz, chairman of the Commerce Committee's Aviation Subcommittee, who will be at the hearing today. Senator Cruz, it's good to see you again. And a couple of moments ago, our guest host said that at this point, the CEO just can't stay, that Mr. Muhlenberg, that there needs to be a break at the top, given everything we know at this point, as it's, been, all these additional data points have come out over the last 3, 4, 5 months. Do you agree with that? Is that what's really needed here, do you think, at this point?
Well, I think that's a question for Boeing shareholders and for their board to decide, but I do think it is important that there be real accountability. There are a lot of questions that still need to be answered, that Boeing needs to be answered. So I think their testimony today is very important. Number one, retrospectively, looking backwards, what went wrong? How was this plane designed with this new system, the so-called MCAS system, that adjusts the tilt of the nose downward? How was it designed without safety mechanisms to prevent the tragic accidents that happened not once but twice? How was the regulatory system designed? What were the incentives within the regulatory systems to sign off on this change that caused so much danger? And moreover, why were pilots not trained on this? Why was there no training that the system has changed, that it was no longer the case that when you pull back on the yoke, it would disengage the stabilization? That's what prior 737s had, but not the 737 MAX. Those questions, ultimately answering those questions, will answer why 346 souls were lost in 2 tragic accidents. Going forward, we need to ask, how can we prevent this from happening again? What needs to change, either at Boeing or in the FAA oversight, to make sure this doesn't happen again?
That's the other question, and that's the FAA. And with all the budget constraints in Washington, and especially from people like you, Senator, and the GOP, you want to watch every penny. So suddenly the FAA farms out some of their duties to the company that they're looking at in terms of judging whether there's safety. What do you do? Does it need more funding? Does it need to be more effective? Does someone need to resign from the FAA? I mean, what happens there?
Look, I think those are all questions that the committee is examining. There is always a danger, particularly when you're dealing with big companies that are subject to active regulation of what's called agency capture, of the regulatory agency becoming too cozy, too much in bed with a giant corporate player. I think there's considerable concern in the FAA context that may well have occurred here, that there was so much back and forth between the FAA and Boeing that you didn't have anyone really watching the store and asking the hard questions of are we ensuring that the safety prevention is there? Are we ensuring that the pilots receive the training they need to keep people safe? And what I think is critical here is the flying public needs to be confident that when you put your family on a plane, your family is going to be safe. And these crashes have shaken that confidence, which jeopardizes. There are tens of thousands of jobs in my home state of Texas and across the country that depend upon a vibrant, successful aviation industry. And if the confidence of the flying public is shaken, that's a real problem.
Will this have a favorable outcome, do you think, Senator? And by that I mean the engines were moved in the interest of saving fuel and emissions and everything else. And the previous version of the 737 MAX, I don't think needed an MCAS system. Is it down the road someday going to be completely airworthy, where everyone will say goodbye to if they're sending their family off somewhere, and not in the back of their mind there won't be the slightest question that this isn't a safe aircraft?
Look, I very much hope so. I think that's a real objective for Boeing, to get these planes back in the air. But to do that, they've got to be able to convince people that they're airworthy, that their families are going to be safe. I know I have heard from a number of airline CEOs that they have high confidence in the safety of the planes, and it is still the case that it is safer to get on an airplane and fly somewhere than it is to drive to the airport in your automobile, and that safety is important. In this instance, that there are a number of ways these accidents could have been prevented. Simple redundancy. The accident started because of a bird strike, a bird that sheared off a little sensor that's right outside the cockpit called the angle of attack sensor, and it was sheared off the plane. And the problem was, when that happened, the computer believed the nose was pointing up, and so as a result, the computer automatically started correcting to point the nose down. The pilots didn't know what was going on. They didn't know why it was doing that. This was a new system. That could have been prevented. You could have redundant angle of attack sensors. You can have a system where when you have contrary information and data coming from the redundant sensors that you don't automatically engage the stabilization. You can have pilot training so they know what this is. All of those are steps that it seems to me should have been done, and I expect we're going to discuss all of those at considerable length in the hearing today.
Senator, just switching gears quickly, if we have a sitting senator, we obviously need to talk about these things. So the latest move by the Speaker here, this is still not a vote to authorize an inquiry, and it's supposedly being done because all the Republicans are doing is arguing about process, and the Democrats want to focus on the substance of what this is all about. Will this do it for you and your colleagues in terms, is this a real vote on an impeachment inquiry like we saw with Bill Clinton and Richard Nixon and going all the way back? Is it?
Well, look, we'll have to see what the specific terms are that the House votes on. I'm glad they're voting. They needed to vote. They've been unwilling to vote so far. So being willing to vote is a step in the right direction. But fundamentally, what we're seeing going on in the House has all the trappings of a kangaroo court. The proceedings are still going on in secret. The minority is still denied the right to subpoena witnesses. That means cross-examination of the witnesses. The American people can't see what the actual evidence is. And instead, the way they're operating is the partisan Democrats are leaking out snippets of these secret testimony as it suits them politically. That's not fair. It's not right. It's not how the House handled the impeachment of Bill Clinton. It's not how the House handled the impeachment of Richard Nixon. Both of those proceedings had rules in place to protect due process, to ensure fairness. Today's Pelosi Democrats have made virtually no efforts to ensure due process or fairness. And the reason is they have a partisan objective in mind. You know, it reminds me of the book Alice in Wonderland. Verdict first, trial later. They want to impeach the president, and their behavior certainly indicates they don't particularly care about what the facts are that are a predicate for doing so. They've wanted to impeach him since November 2016 when the American people elected him.
In the current, this latest thing, it's not Russia, it's a totally different, obviously, subject that we're talking about here. Have you already rendered a verdict without knowing everything? Is there any way that you would ever come to a yes for conviction in the Senate, or have you already made your mind up with a verdict first that there's nothing could rise to the level of an impeachable offense? Are you there?
Listen, I think we should investigate what happened. I voted along with all 100 senators. We all voted to refer this matter to the Senate Intelligence Committee, a bipartisan committee, to investigate what happened. I think, sure, we should investigate what happened and be open to ascertaining the true facts. That is a very different thing than what the House is doing. You know, you look at the House a few months ago, 93 House Democrats voted to impeach the president simply because he criticized the so-called squad, these freshman House members who said so many outlandish things. And for 93 of them, that was enough to impeach the president, to remove a democratically elected president. I think at the end of the day, what's driving the circus that's going on in the House it is a rage and hatred for the president rather than a fidelity to facts. The Senate, I hope and believe, will have a much greater fidelity to facts. And under the Constitution, the threshold to remove a sitting president committing high crimes and misdemeanors as found by 2/3 of the Senate, that threshold is very high. And based on what's public right now, I think we're nowhere near close to that. There may be the partisan votes in the House to impeach, but based on what we know now, I think it is extraordinarily unlikely that the president would be removed. And that's the way it should be. It's the way the constitutional system is meant to operate.
All right, Senator, thank you. And we'll be watching with the whole Boeing situation. We have to do a lot of different, we got to know about a lot of different things, don't we, Senator, in this,
Absolutely.
In this world? I mean, it's just... I mean, it's like there's like 10 elephants in every room. It's like,
by the way, Astros win in 6. We're winning tomorrow night.
That's pretty amazing. These last
or
3
tonight,
games.
rather.
Man, they went to a higher gear or something, didn't they?
It's been beautiful.
Would you think you'd get booed in Houston like that, Senator?
I think it would be a very different place. The president has a lot of supporters in Houston. I think he would get a lot of applause and some boos. Look, we're a divided time.
Yes, we are. All right, Senator. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Coming up when we return, the CFO of General Motors. We're going to talk about the company's latest financial results and its new labor deal with the Auto Workers Union. And we're going to talk to Ben Horowitz about autonomous driving. Stay tuned.
When we chose independence, it was like discovering newfound superpowers.
It's another Tuesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and enjoy stunning white sand and crystal blue sea. Fly from London Gatwick to the Maldives with British Airways from £300 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its symbols when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
This autumn, as the nights draw in, beat the cold with Now TV. Curl up with the latest blockbusters, including Bohemian Rhapsody and Hotel Mumbai. Plus, with over 40 new movies added each month, from Aquaman to How to Train Your Dragon 3, Now TV's got you covered, wherever you feel like watching. Get cozy with the latest and best movies for just $11.99 a month. Search Now TV today. 18 plus month passes auto-renews unless cancelled. Terms apply.
Welcome back to Squawk. General Motors posting quarterly results earlier this morning. Phil LeBeau joins us right now with the automaker's CFO. Phil.
Thank you, Andrew. Let's bring in Divya Suryadevara from GM's headquarters in Detroit. Divya, you guys beat the street by a wide margin in the third quarter, but clearly the UAW strike had an impact on Q3 earnings and your guidance for Q4. Is the total, when you add it all up, about $2.9 billion for the strike impact?
Yeah, I'd say, Phil, it was a very strong quarter, as you point out. The strike, as you point out, had an impact as well, which was 52 cents for the quarter and $2 in EPS for the year. But really, what we should focus on is the underlying performance in North America was strong, driven by our crossovers as well as the truck performance. And from a strike perspective, while we had an impact, the underlying business continues to remain strong.
Divya, you now have all of your plants running at full production. How long will it take for you guys to make up for the lost production from this strike that lasted 39 days?
Yeah, Phil, we're building every unit that we can. The plants are up and running. And from a calendar year standpoint, since we're already running these plants at pretty full capacity, I think there's going to be limited opportunities to make it up. And going into next year, we're going to take every opportunity that we can, whether it's weekends or holidays or appropriate overtime, to try and make up these units. And that's going to depend on the industry levels as well moving into next year. But assure you, we're building every unit where we can.
Does that mean it might take well into the first quarter, maybe even to the second quarter, to make up that lost production?
I think, as I said, from a truck perspective, we're already running at full capacity, and we're going to have to see how the industry plays out in 2020.
Divya, are you guys now better positioned in case there is a recession in the next year or a dramatic drop-off in auto sales for the entire industry? Because you've closed these 3 plants or are in the process of doing that, are you better positioned as an automaker if there is a recession?
We have had robust downturn planning for several years now and thinking about what are the levers that we would pull and how would we adjust our volumes to respond to what's happening in the marketplace. And that remains intact. We have said we're going to break even at around 10 to 11 million units in the U.S. And we're going to continue to do that. And we're running the business with cost discipline to ensure that we're able to navigate through a cycle. And that has not changed.
Divya Suryadevara, the CFO of General Motors, joining us from the company's headquarters on a day, guys, where they beat the street by a wide margin, $1.72 a share. Most on the street were expecting them to earn just $1.31. Back to you.
All right, Phil, thanks. Our guest host today, Ben Horowitz. We started talking about this before we went to break, Ben. So the original description of Libra caused me to appreciate what Bitcoin had. I started buying it in July, in late July. So I've been buying it ever since, off and on. So, and it was the distributed network and the distributed ledger and the decentralization and the digital gold aspect of Bitcoin that got me. And I saw none of that in Libra, other than maybe it's like a debit card or something like that. Why am I wrong about that?
Well, I think you're wrong in that Libra is also a distributed ledger that has this property that Bitcoin has in it, which is trust, in that you don't have to trust a company, not even Facebook. You don't have to trust a country. You just have to trust the mathematical and game theoretic properties of the system.